Hey there, this is your host, Dr. Lori Friesen, and you're listening to episode number 332 of Beginning Teacher Talk. Just because you're a beginning elementary teacher, there is no need for you to struggle like one. I'm dedicated to being the mentor for you that I wish I had when I first started teaching. In this podcast, we talk about all of the behind-the-scenes stuff about teaching you really need to know, but didn't learn when you were in university. And we share the most amazing resources, tips, and strategies out there so you can become the teacher you've always dreamed of being. Let's start the show. Well, hey there, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. My voice might feel a little scratchy or sound a little scratchy. This week, I have been pre-recording ahead a lot of different episodes, and we recorded the audiobook for my second book, Lung Cancer Free. So that was a very emotional experience, I have to tell you. If you don't know the story, my husband had a double lung transplant last year, and it was the most harrowing, terrifying, remarkable, incredible experience I've ever had. It was just something I had to document because not only did this transplant give him new life, he's literally cancer free, but also people need to know that this is an option for them. So it's not related to teaching, of course, but we are more than just teachers, right? We have personal lives. We have lots of things going on that tremendously impact our ability to not only focus in the classroom, but to be present with kids and actually, able to teach and do our jobs the way we want to do them. And we all have things going on. You just never know what personal battles people are fighting and are facing and are dealing with. And so this happened in our lives, and I needed to share the story. So it's been exciting and so emotionally exhausting to record that book because, I must have cried 8 times in that book. I was bawling my eyes out. And then my husband, of course, I had him read his sections, and it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, but it's a gift. I know it's a gift to people who are struggling. So if you know anybody who's struggling with not just lung cancer, that's what's amazing about this. And I don't want to turn this whole episode into talking about cancer, but it impacts so many of us. We all either know somebody or have lost somebody to cancer, and what they're doing at Northwestern, the research they're doing, the studies they're doing, the calculated risks they're taking are opening up new avenues to literally curing cancer. So if you know anybody who's been impacted by cancer, I really encourage you to either scoop up the book or get the audio version of it, because you can, just listening to us tell the story, you'll realize this is so much bigger than us. This could be life-changing for millions of people around the world. Okay, so that's not why you're here today. You're here because you're like, okay, well, that's interesting, but I'm really interested in learning how to involve more movement into my lessons so I can get my kids more focused and engaged. So let's talk about that. And the reason that this topic came up is because teachers were talking about it inside the Classroom Management Club in our Facebook group. And really, especially in the months leading up to the winter break, but anytime throughout the year, we need to find more ways to involve more movement into our lessons, because let's just face it, kids are full of energy no matter what time of the year it is. And sometimes trying to contain that energy feels like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a paper cup, right? It's just impossible. So what if I told you that instead of fighting it, you could harness that energy in a way that makes your lessons not only more fun, but also more effective? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Easy ways that you can involve movement in your lessons to increase student focus and engagement. So let's just talk about this important question, like, why is movement so critical? Because if you're complaining about kids not paying attention, this might be what you need. This might be the missing piece. This may be the game changer for you. So research shows that physical activity is directly linked, first of all, to better brain function. So studies from organizations like the CDC and the American Journal of Pediatrics tell us that when students are physically active, their brains release endorphins. And we all know that, right? When you go to the gym, sometimes you don't want to go, but when you get there, it's like you feel so much better, which can improve your mood. It can improve focus. It can boost focus, and it can even enhance memory retention, which for learning, that's really important. So if you think about it this way, when kids are sitting for long periods of time, their brains are kind of like cars idling in park. They're running, but they're not going anywhere fast. When you add movement, that suddenly kind of revs up the engine and gets kids ready to perform, ready to learn, ready to be in their optimal peak performance mode. Now, not only that, but integrating movement into your lessons also supports your kinesthetic learners. And I would argue, honestly, that we're all kinesthetic learners, but there are kids who learn best by doing. So for these kids, sitting at a desk all day is like trying to read in a language that they don't even speak. And when you incorporate movement, you're giving them a way to speak their language and understand your lessons in a way that really works for them. And movement doesn't just help your active kiddos, it helps everyone, even your quiet, focused students benefit because, again, movement helps the brain transition between tasks. It improves circulation and it helps to prevent us from getting tired. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but at the end of the day, if you're feeling exhausted, typically it's because we haven't done any movement. We have been sitting almost all day. And it's a big problem, I think, in our society in general. So here are some of the amazing ways movement can transform your lessons. As we talked about, studies show that just a few minutes of physical activity can help reset a student's attention span, and it helps them to be more ready to learn. It breaks up the monotony. It really increases engagement, adds an element of fun. When kids are having fun, they're naturally more engaged. Again, it helps to boost their memory retention and especially long-term memory. So when students move while they're learning, they're much more likely to remember what you've taught them. And again, of course, it reduces restlessness and behavior issues because a quick activity can release all that pent-up energy, and it makes your students able to focus afterward much more easily. And again, movement activities require students to work together sometimes, and it helps to build those relationships, improve classroom culture. So you might be thinking, okay, Lori, this sounds amazing, but how do I actually make this work in my classroom without it turning into chaos? So don't worry, I've got you covered. We're going to walk through some very practical, easy to implement ways to add movement to your lessons, to add to your toolbox. Whether you're teaching kindergarten or fifth grade, there's going to be something here for you. So grab your favorite pen, your teacher bestie, and a notebook because we're about to dive into some very fun, practical strategies that you can start using in your classroom right away tomorrow. That's what I love in this podcast. I want to share with you actionable things that you can take and use right away. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas. Again, take what you like, leave what you don't, because some things will resonate more with you in your teaching style, but take at least 3 or 4 and try them out over the next couple of weeks. Okay, the first one that's so easy to do, and I'm surprised more teachers don't use this, is simple stand and share. So whenever students complete a problem or they answer a question, you have them stand up to share their answer with a partner and then sit back down. So they're not sharing with you. They're just going to share their answer with a partner, but they're standing up. And that small movement breaks up the lesson and encourages kids to talk to each other, which is, of course, what kids love most in the world, right? They want to talk. And this is one way you can do that throughout your lessons easily. And I'm going to talk about, at the end of this, some tips and tricks for how to do this quickly and easily and keep your kids still focused, because that's probably your next question is, how do I do that? Number 2 is movement voting. So you can ask a question with simple multiple choice answers. So stay with me here. So you assign each answer a movement, and you can put this on a slide so kids have a visual, and so you can reuse them for any lesson anytime you want to incorporate a bit of movement. But for example, if they think the answer is A, they start doing jumping jacks. If they think the answer is B, they spin in a circle. And if they think the answer is C, they touch their toes. Okay, so it's the same slide, and you can give them different questions that they need to answer, or you can have several slides with different actions on them and keep rotating through them. So when you're asking questions, you could also let your students move from one side of the room to vote for a specific answer. So for example, move to the left or to this side, you can point for A, and to this side for B. So whichever answer they think is right, they move to that side of the room. And then they come back to center to find the answer, right? But they perform the movement that just corresponds to what they think their answer is. It's quick, it's fun, and it keeps kids active and reinforcing learning. But do you see? Just those 2 things, getting kids up and moving, you're already teaching maybe boring content. This is especially helpful. If you're teaching stuff that's boring, or if you're reviewing content, so helpful. Okay, number 3, this one I love, is call and action responses. So basically you tie movement to content with call and action responses. So let me give you an example. So during a science lesson, for example, you could say, if this is a living thing, hop on one foot. If it's non-living, wave your arms, right? So you just have to have a list of different actions that you could have them do. And then that way, when you want to get them moving throughout the lesson, you give them 1 or 2. In a reading lesson, if the character is happy, clap your hands. If they're sad, touch your toes, right? Simple, quick, interactive, and again, reinforces comprehension and gives you immediate feedback, by the way, in a memorable way. The next one I love is movement flashcards. This is so fun. Okay, you can create flashcards with lesson-related prompts and movements. So for example, for vocabulary words, students jump for nouns, or they spin for verbs, or they clap for adjectives. And I know this sounds like, oh my God, these are so many ideas. This is complicated. Just again, take 1 or 2 or 3 and try to incorporate them over the next couple of weeks. And spoiler alert, I'm going to be creating these movement flashcards for our teachers inside the Classroom Management Club in the coming months. So watch for those resources coming to you soon, especially when it comes to spring, when kids have spring fever and they're like, they cannot sit in their desks, they cannot focus anymore. And when you need to do test prep, especially for state testing or any of those high pressure tests that we do too many of. So those are really going to be helpful for a lot of teachers. Join the club, come get them. It's going to be amazing. Okay, number 5, this came up in our club Facebook group and I thought it was such a great idea. I have to share it with you. It's called a gallery walk. So you create stations, or you can post questions or activities around the room, and students rotate through each station discussing or solving problems as they go. So you could use it in any subject area with whatever content you want, but it gets them moving and engaged with the content with very little effort on your part. You're literally just posting them all around the room with numbers so they know where they need to go. And you have students start at different stations, so not everyone's starting at the same one. The next one is, think about number 6 we're on, brain breaks with a twist. So if you use something like Simon Says in your classroom, you can do this, but tie it to a lesson. So for example, Simon says, act like a verb during an English lesson, or Simon says, hop to the number 5 during math, right? So you just get the kids doing more related activities with the content that you're already teaching or reviewing. This one is really cute too. It's number 7, walk and talk pair shares. So instead of pairing students up at their desks, have them pair up and walk slowly around the room while discussing an answer. So you could have them just walk around the periphery of the room in the same direction, probably because you don't want everyone running into each other. But that movement really, again, helps to promote focus. It keeps the energy up, but you just set a clear time limit, like 30 seconds, set your timer, let the kids know that by the time that timer goes off, and you can give them a countdown, that you need them back in their desks, ready to return to their seats for the next question, right? You can get them up and moving several times throughout that whole lesson. Number 8, I love this one. This is a quiz walk. So similar to the gallery walk, you can post the questions or the problems around the classroom. Now, I wouldn't do this for anything high stakes, right? This is just a quick quiz, like of 10 questions that you want to check their comprehension for. But the students walk to each location to answer the questions and then move on to the next spot. So it's just an active way, a quick, easy way to assess understanding. But again, it gets your kids up and moving, which is the whole point. And again, mix these up, like try one week, try the other the next week. But once you've done them several times with your kids, they know it, right? They know what to do, especially when you've built your expectations in for each one, which again, we'll talk about towards the end. Number 9 is stretch and solve. So you combine movement with problem solving again, but doing stretches promotes relaxation. It again releases those endorphins. You can have kids perform stretches or yoga poses while they're solving math problems or brainstorming ideas. You can be leading it from the front of the class and having the kids follow along, right? Getting them up and moving while they're brainstorming ideas or while they're solving a problem. Very good. Number 10, I used to do this all the time with my second graders, and it was air writing. So you have your students use their arms to air write answers to your questions. So maybe it's spelling vocabulary words, or maybe it's drawing shapes, or it's writing their answer in the air to anything. It's especially great, like I mentioned, for younger students who really thrive on large motor movements. And I also love that you can have kids still seated while they're doing it. And this again reduces the risk for kids to answer questions publicly, especially especially for your more shy students or your students who lack confidence in answering questions in front of the class. There's no risk. They can write their answer in the air and nobody really knows what their answer was. Now, number 11 is moving in the classroom again for answers. But what I love about this is you can place answer choices or topic related visuals in different areas of the room. So it's a little bit of a twist on it. So students can walk, hop, or tiptoe to the location that represents their answer. So it's perfect for reviewing math facts, for example, or choices in a non-chaotic way. So you could, if you're reviewing math facts, for example, up to 20, you could post the numbers 1 to 20 around the room and have the kids move in a specific way to the answer that they think is the answer to that question. So again, just a fun twist in getting kids moving when they're answering questions. And then finally, my last idea for you that I absolutely love, and I had my students do this all the time, was to have kids respond to questions using funny voices. And there are so many funny voices kids can use when they're answering questions or whenever you have them do a turn and talk to keep things lively and entertaining. So this doesn't have to be for the whole group unless you have some performers that really like to perform, then they might want to answer questions using a silly voice, but you can mix this up, right? So you can have kids do a turn and talk and answer like a robot, right? Just using a monotone mechanical voice with lots of like beep bop sounds or whatever they want to do for the robot voice. You can have them respond like an opera singer. You can have them respond like a monster. Get creative. Use whatever types of voices you think your kids would resonate with. And you can invite them. Who would like to answer that question using their opera singer voice or whatever? Let kids have some fun with it, because whenever you can build a little bit of laughter into the lesson, that's when you're going to win, right? You're going to keep kids engaged. So let's talk about, you're probably like, okay, those are great ideas, Lori, but I can see this turning into chaos in my classroom. And as you always hear me talk about, preparation is key, and making sure you've thought through your expectations in advance so that so anticipate. If you know kids are going to be talking like a friendly monster or whatever it is, you think about in advance, well, what kinds of problems might that invite, and prepare in advance your expectations. So number 1, keep things structured. Set clear rules like move quietly if they're moving around the classroom, or freeze when the timer rings to maintain control, or just in the last example, sounding like a friendly monster when they're answering questions, put your hand up for zero noise, right? Whatever it is that you're using in your classroom, so kids know when you're answering, everyone's going to have fun. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, eyes here, zero noise. Okay, moving on. Right? You just need a quick and easy way to keep things structured so that kids can come back to you and you can keep the activity going. The second thing is to make sure that you keep the activities short. Like all of the examples that I've given you involve having students move for a short period of time, stopping, reviewing the answer, and then moving again, right? So you want to limit the movement activities to 1 or 2 minutes max, because it keeps them fun and effective, and it avoids losing valuable teaching time. And you can tell the kids straight up, look, I'm doing this to help you to, get to move more and to have some fun in our lesson. But if it gets crazy and if you can't manage it, if we go out of control and we start wasting time, then I'm going to have to stop and we'll just have to sit at our desks again. So if kids know that natural consequence is coming, and it will, right? You need to build that in. If they're getting wild, you just tell them, oh, I'm trying to have fun with you here. I'm trying to build this in for you, but we can't do that if you're going to get wild. So we all have to agree that when I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, eyes here, zero noise, you come back to your desks, your eyes are on me, and we move on to the next question. If we can't manage that together, I'm going to have to stop and we won't be able to do any more movement, right? Natural consequence, immediate. Let kids know, give them feedback. And also acknowledge, you hear me say this all the time, all the things that they're doing right. You can say, oh my gosh, I love that you all came back. That means we get to do this again. I'm so excited. Okay, here's your next challenge, right? So they love it, you love it, and you're constantly in communication with them about all the good things they're doing and how proud you are of them for staying focused while you're having fun. And then always, you hear me say this all the time as well, make it a routine. So the more consistently you include movement, it becomes just the way you do things in your classroom, the more students will know what to expect. And you will get better at defining exactly what your expectations are because you're doing it more often. Movement then becomes a tool, not a distraction. And everybody understands it feels better when they get to move more often. They're having fun. They're enjoying themselves more. And when they're doing that, they're going to want to do it more. So as you build in this routine, as you figure it out together, and again, you can I always say this too, right? Kids support what they help create. So if you help them to develop a routine with you and say, okay, that didn't go very smoothly. What could we do to improve it? Let's talk about it. Okay, great. Let's do that next time. And remind me, we got to keep doing it this way so that, we stay focused. You're involving them. You're keeping them in the conversation with you. And again, that's going to help kids to want to do it even more and more. So I hope these ideas inspire you to get your students up and moving. You might want to listen to it 2 or 3 times because I did share a lot of ideas, but they will get your kids moving while keeping your lessons productive and focused. And I promise you, it's going to get kids even more engaged because they'll realize this is fun. We get to move and have fun in Mrs. Friesen's class. And movement isn't about creating chaos. It's about creating opportunities for engagement and for fun and for, making memories, because you're going to do some pretty silly things. Like kids get involved in different ways that they can move, brainstorm things together with them. And the next time you see your students starting to zone out, just try 1 or 2 of these strategies and notice how much more re-energized not only your students are, but you become because you're having more fun. All right, my friends, if you loved this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your teacher besties. I am so grateful every single time that you share this podcast. That is how we keep it alive. That is how it keeps going. So if you love the podcast, please do leave a review and please take a moment to share it with a teacher friend who would love it and find it helpful. And don't forget to check out the Classroom Management Club for even more ideas to create an incredible, joyful classroom. We are adding to the club all the time. Every time I do a podcast episode, if you like the podcast, you are going to love the club because I take all of these ideas a step further. You usually get a cheat sheet and related resources like I talked about for this one, because we're always building new things. Every time I do an episode, I'm like, ooh, we need to create a resource for that to make your teaching lives even better. So I hope you'll come join us. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, remember, just because you're a beginning elementary teacher, there's no need for you to struggle like one. Bye for now.